Hello, everyone. You join us as the pots and pans beat to the sound of the Glazers' end of Manchester United ownership. At least that is the hope. So join us here on the Football Lounge to discuss the latest mumblings of Avram Glazer. The Piano Man column has been in full session there while we were in the intro. But I want to welcome our very special guest. Back time with Vaughan. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It seems that every time we chat on stream, we're talking about finances, aren't we?
I'm delighted to be here. I'm pleased that we can already hear the Glazers apparently like leaving in the background with that cacophony. And it's great to be on with you and Colm tonight, Rebel. How you going, mate? You all right?
Can't complain now. We're rapidly coming up towards the holiday season, which means no more work after Friday next week. So that's always a good sign. And what I have been most impressed with is the pace of this situation seems to be running at, because I'd say it'd be little more than a month ago. The idea of Manchester United being sold didn't even enter any of our minds, Colin, did it?
No, not really. Not really. We never thought that this was going to happen. Looking at it over the last month or two, we thought it was going to be quite a difficult thing. But I just want to say something feels really, really weird right now. I'm not sure. I can't put my finger on it, but something is very, very weird. I'm not sure whether it's because there's an unglitching camera somewhere in this whole setup we have.
What? Where? What camera? Yes, I am actually on camera, and I don't have to go hide behind my PDF, which unfortunately my internet connection prescribed up until now. But it is a rather good feeling to have unbroken tech sitting in front of me. So I am delighted with that. Now, Colm, we are of course sponsored. So we do need to get some short messages out. Take them away there, sir.
No problem. So we would like to say we are proudly sponsored by Global Mapping Surveys. What is Global Mapping Surveys, I hear you ask? Come on, guys, it's Panto season. Come on.
Topographical survey experts.
Yes, they are topographical survey experts. They offer a wide range of services as well, such as setting out, 3D laser scanning and monitoring. Obviously, they help with the property development architects and construction companies all over the country. So thank you very much to them. And the link is in the description for the website and contact details. We're going on to the next one, which is Reef Energy. Sorry, I am drinking some of that at the minute. Reef is an energy-powered formula drink that is mixed with water. So it is your water-based energy drink, and it is a healthier alternative to generic energy drink cans. Its clean, zero sugar, antioxidant-rich formula is designed to give it the edge that you need in your competitive gaming or streaming. We have a 10% discount with these guys, so thank you very much. Scan that QR code right there and type in FTSN22 to receive that. And finally, if you've been here before, you'll know you can win your team's shirt on us. It's as easy as getting involved in a live chat or after the show, and we will be picking a winner on just over 2 weeks' time. So not much time left. See, where was that earlier?
Why is Scott McTominay standing behind you? I'm sorry, Bethlehem. I know he's your idol. I don't mean to poke fun at poor old Scottish Tommy.
It's good. I saw him wrestling a lion on Instagram yesterday. What a lad.
Fair play to him. But lads, I suppose we better get down to the nuts and bolts of the situation. And the comments of one Avram Glazer. And we're just going to bring this little quote up here on the screen. Avram Glazer essentially was doorstepped yesterday on the way into the Argentina versus Morocco. I'm sorry, the France versus Morocco semi-final, and he was asked about his thoughts on the World Cup and about interested parties. And he says, "I'm here in Qatar to really watch the World Cup, but I appreciate your interest." And I think we have the one about his process as well here somewhere, don't we, Colin?
Yes, we do. Is it that one or is it that one?
This one.
There you go.
So he said, when speaking to the goings-ons of the process, as he put it, it's not necessarily a sale, it's a process, and we're going forward with the process. So we see what happens. That's the update. It's the process, and the process is proceeding. So back time with Vaughan, I just want to ask you, is he being sponsored by someone to repeat process as many times as possible in as short a time frame as possible? Because there can't be any other logical explanation for the answer he's given. And given that the USA are no longer participating in said World Cup, surely that means that his interest really is diminished and that there was other motives to his presence.
Well, I think that rather than being sponsored by, I don't know who would sponsor someone saying process repeatedly, possibly Arteta. I would imagine it's him trying to be funny, to be honest, and like give him some credit. The joke is lost in the telling. I would think that like Avram Glazer has literally zero interest in football, and I can't believe that he's at the World Cup final to see Amrabat like play in a rest defence or whatever. He's there for status and possibly to chat to not necessarily interested buyers, but connected people to enjoy the power, the privilege, and the position that comes as the owner of like one of the biggest football clubs in the world. And at the moment, a club that's in demand. So he was probably feeling like the prettiest girl at the party, which is what we all aspire to feel like. What did you think, Cole?
See, I am on the same kind of wavelength as you here. It's clearly the guy has no interest in sport whatsoever. Well, not football anyway. You know, I have seen a lot of things all over the stratosphere of Twitter, which is not the most reliable source in the world, let's face it, of is going there to try and finish brokering the deal to sell Manchester United, but I don't believe that for a second. I really don't. But yeah, like you said, it's literally just there to be part of the high society class that has just gone there, basically. I think he should be getting back on a plane and sorting out this deal personally.
There were rumors last night in that Twitter sphere that a meeting of the family and the Ryan Group took place at 10 p.m. American time yesterday. This is on foot, obviously, of rumors that Avram Glazer was believed to be meeting with potential suitors to the club. Now, a lot of Manchester United fans have been casting aspersions as to the position that United are in since the most recent accounts got released, and that United has been full of nefarious weasels for quite some time that have been sucking the lifeblood of the club away. And when I presume they are only referencing a certain family across the water when they refer to nefarious, underhanded weasels. But that time, we owe roughly £310 million in future transfer fees for the transactions that have been done to date. And if you were to just take the set of accounts at face value, essentially, as a club, we haven't got a pot to piss in for the January transfer window. But obviously, we know that there's more to transactions that are current transfer windows than just the bottom line that's in your account.
Right, like look, I always say this. I'm not an accountant. I'm a scientist. But like look, the most important thing in any business is cash flow. Right, it's much more important. It's how you manage your debts, and it's what allows you to invest in things. Do United have a consistent cash flow? Um, I'm not completely sure. I don't want to get into talking about EBITDA again, and earnings for interest, tax, deductibles, amortization. all of that. What we can see, right, from this situation and from this Twitter gossip, is two things that I find very surprising. The first thing is that the Rain Consultancy Group, American-owned investment firm, I find it a little bit bizarre that Avram Glazer, sorry, has hired them men to go and sell the club for him, and that yet he goes to the meeting. Okay, I'm not. So straight away, I'm slightly dubious about that because that really shouldn't. I just don't think that top end business should be conducted like that. But maybe it is. The second thing is that we're trying to be sold. Like the club will be attractive to people. Future expenses, look, not a massive issue. United make hundreds of millions a year. I'm not quite sure what the operating profit is, but the transfer fees are serviceable debt. They're not like all due in at the same time. They're paid every 3 to 6 months and in installments. It's like, but you know, if a guy came around your house now and tried to like make you pay for everything that you'd bought on higher credit, including the house, you'd be in problems, I imagine. But they don't do that because we live in the real world, and I wouldn't be worried about any of these things impeding a sale.
Absolutely bad time. Now, interesting thing is as well is it's believed that our debt levels have reached somewhere in the region of £1 billion, and this has been kind of compounded by the fact that for the first time the Glazers are unable to take a, a dividend payment at the end of the year. Now, there was one period during the COVID situation where they also didn't take a dividend, but in general, they have found ways to modify the accounts in order to generate the needed profit. But looking at the situation that has kind of taken place about a month ago, Manchester United were not even in the conversation for being sold. We started off with this Ronnie situation and the interview with Pat the Plank Arsenal fan, and slowly following his termination, all these other bits and pieces started seeping out into the general media. And all of a sudden, then, Manchester United was up for debate in terms of being sold. Now, the price tag that the Glazers have slapped on the club, given obviously that they're looking to walk away from the debt, along with absolutely gets monopoly money for the club, is roughly £8 billion. At least that's what the Rain Group are trying to achieve for them by getting the big American players involved in shoving up the price. Now, from a market value perspective, obviously the club is not worth anywhere near that currently because the fixed assets are in disarray. Old Trafford is pretty much being neglected during their entire lifetime of owning the club. Carrington is believed to be stuck in the 1970s in terms of its training materials. So I suppose looking at this project, has the Glazers left United in such a bad position that it's going to take massive initial investment to get them into the position where we're able to run on our own power and what we generate commercially again?
Yeah, of course they have. I mean, if you actually look at how much Man United is actually evaluated at, that is 4.6 billion is what they're actually valued at. The Glazers are wanting 8 billion. You know, they could even try and push that up even further if they wanted to by adding people in the January transfer window. You know, if they go out and spend another 200 million, that's going to add on to the price. But, I mean, we were talking a little bit before the show, you know, whoever comes in and buys this then has to go out and either fix the stadium or build a new one. That's another couple of £100 million. They have to bring in multiple players over a period of time. So you're probably looking £2 billion there. And that's just to put us back to challenging for titles. If we wanted to be winning titles, then we're going to have to throw even a bit more money in. So let's say it's going to take us 5 years to, you know, get this title shot back. You know, we could have spent 6 billion by then. And then you got all the training ground that needs improving as well. That's another couple $100 million. So whoever is going to come in and buy Manchester United, needs to be able to throw money at the club. And then once all that is sorted, just let it run on itself if it's possible to do that.
Absolutely. Now, Bat Time Solo is giving a lot of plaudits to one Cristiano Ronaldo for calling out the Glazers in his interview with Paddy Wasteman, Arsenal fan. What do you make of this assertion?
I'm sorry, Solo. This is utter nonsense. I think that the most, I would suspect the timing of Ronaldo's interview was based around information that the Glazers were trying to sell, as opposed to Ronaldo's interview precipitating a sale for the Glazers. I think it's opportunistic from Ronaldo. I certainly don't think that in an ideal world he would want to release that interview before his last dance at the World Cup. But I'm not someone to question the mind of a great like Ronaldo. But there's been quite a lot said, Rebel, in the last minute that I think I need to just sort of bring up. First of all, the club is valued in pounds, right? The debt is in dollars. The debt is in dollars. The Glazers will not be putting an £8 billion valuation on the club. They'll be putting a $10 billion valuation on the club, and that is reflected in pounds. One of the reasons that is forcing the sale is the weak price of sterling to dollar at the moment. Because if the sterling, I think, like maybe 6 weeks ago, was at 1.1 or 1.08 to the dollar, and that's outrageous for the Glazers to have that level of debt. We know from articles in The Athletic that the Glazer family is in a sort of civil war where the majority of them are absolutely livid that they didn't sell when Ronaldo came and the share price was roughly $20, I think. It could have been 21 or something. Now, I think it went as low as 13 with prices. Scottish independence and the movement towards that is going to cause a massive issue for American investment in Europe, which very quickly is about what happens to the Scottish natural gas and oil reserves if they get independence. And, for example, at the moment, the United Kingdom imports maybe 10% of its oil from abroad, meaning that it's much easier to sanction Ukraine and things. When you look at what's happened in Germany, where they import 50 to 60% of their energy supply from Russia, like all these factors around OPEC and NATO have huge repercussions on any investment. To Colm's point about is the club's in just a huge state of disrepair and all this. Couldn't agree more. But this is an infrastructure. This is an infrastructure issue as opposed to a cash flow issue. We've matched Man City and every other club in the world for spending over a 10-year period on transfer fees, despite being massively in debt. I wouldn't worry about outlays on buying players. We make huge amounts of money. We're a massive club. Like, don't worry about that. Infrastructure is extremely attractive to American investors, but the difference is that they expect us to pay for it. Where like that means that, for example, if Messi were to play for Inter Miami next year, the club wouldn't have the cost. They would increase season ticket prices to $100. Sorry, they'd increase a ticket price to $100. Fairly common in Europe as well to have things like this. And they also want governments and councils to foot the bill of the stadium. So unfortunately what I suspect will happen is that we will have the Spotify Theatre of Dreams or something similar in the future. And if that's what it takes to get the Glazers out, I don't know. Is that a good thing, Rebel? Would you be happy with that?
Well, I suppose it's a price to pay. I suppose the biggest thing though would be, will we lose Old Trafford's history as we know? Because will an American or a big investor look at that and kind of go, it's going to be easier to build you from the basement back up than to tear down your guts and fix you from the inside. So do we lose our identity? Arsenal fans have spoken on how the loss of Highbury has affected things. Now, obviously, in a footballing sense, they're starting to come back around and turn that ship. But there was a feeling that they lost something when they moved from Highbury to the Emirates. So you would fear maybe that something like that would occur. But then I suppose you have to look at the football tourism aspect of Manchester United. There are a lot of, I suppose, not 100% red-blooded fans that attend games. You obviously the Stretford End is always going to be the Stretford End. The local, the most loyal of United fans occupy seats there. But as you know from the megastore, there is a lot of people that come in, they spend their couple of grand on produce, and they go home, and they're happy with their lot. I did have the unbelievable aghastment just when I was standing there with my Manchester United mug that I wanted for my tea break at work to be standing behind an Asian football tourist who bought £2,500 worth of produce right there in front of me. So I suppose that aspect of it is always going to be present. But you raised an interesting point, Batten, about Manchester United competing financially over the last 10 years and the £1 billion they did spend. I suppose that really is testament to the absolute catastrophe that has been the Glazer ownership, because at the end of the day, what we saw there is a complete mismanagement of those funds, because if they were used appropriately, surely our squad would never fall into the position that it is. And as Solo has reminded me, the 14 wonderful people that are watching this discussion on the Glazers, please do consider giving us a like, share, and subscribe. We do really appreciate it. And of course, every comment that is in today's show goes into the draw for the shirt of your choice, either club or country. I don't think we've restricted it. And one of you would be picked out in the new year. But aside from that all, there also it seems that Ten Hag seems to be very aware of what's going on. Now there are two schools of thought that have to be taken from what has been said. One is that some media have been insinuating that he's been told it's going to be an investor and that a certain family are still going to have their mitts on club. And the other one is that there's a complete sale. Just to quote a few of the bits and pieces from Ten Hag's interview, he said, it's a tough competition between 7 or 8 clubs. There's a change in circumstances when you compare with 5 or 10 years ago. This competition is so much tougher. Obviously, talking about the Premier League. Richard Arnold told him that Manchester United are exploring investment. So this is where that school of thought is after coming from. They are open and transparent as informed by the club, but I'm not taking issue with the owners. Ten Hag talks about the potential of the takeover. I look at the competition and the Premier League, they all have the opportunity to invest. So he's saying that there's quite a lot of potential suitors for a lot of potential clubs. And he's saying that what will mean the bottom line is more money will become available for this project. So obviously Ten Hag is looking at the long term. How much do you think the Glazer family are telling him that time?
Well, obviously next to nothing. Why would they tell him anything? I mean, like, to be perfectly frank, Ten Hag is very likely to lose his job if there is a takeover. I think only Ferguson and Wenger have survived takeovers in modern football, and they'd been at the club for at least a decade during that time. But no, Ten Hag will. All Ten Hag can really ask for is like, what funds do I have available, and like what players we can get in. And he's been told, oh, looking for investment, as if like they're the borrowers or something, which they technically are. But no, I mean, I just can't imagine a situation where Avram Glazer sits down with Ten Hag and tells him about the plans for selling the club, the tax deductions they're looking for. Absolute nonsense. He'll know less than journalists, Ten Hag, about the sale.
That's an interesting point by Batten Cullen, because it is believed that he didn't know about Ronaldo's situation until he read it in the media.
Well, it's true. It's true. The Glazers aren't going to tell him anything, are they? Let's put it bluntly. The Glazers have brought him in to steady the ship and try and get something out of what's been a terrible tenure, with the previous managers. That's why he's here. He's here to restart the club. He's not here to talk about finances. He's not here to talk about the sale. He's not here to talk about, who's going, who's staying kind of thing, really. The Glazers have made these choices, not Ten Hag. The whole Ronaldo thing, we've covered it loads and loads of times, but Ronaldo knew he was gone anyway, which is why he brought out this interview. He knew he was done at Manchester United. So, that's all in the past. But obviously, we're just talking about things, and I'm just kind of doing research in the background as well. Like, apparently, there's a £200 million budget in there for January transfers. Whether or not that'll actually come to fruition, I don't know. The Laurie Whitwell's put out as well not so long ago that there was a momentum on the stadium redevelopment, but it would cost 1.2 to 1.6 billion, which the Glazers aren't looking at doing. They don't want to spend that much. So there's all this kind of stuff coming out now. So we're getting live updates. Obviously, as we're doing the show, we're getting proper new updates. But, to go off the topic, to go off the question a little bit, this is showing you now that the Glazers are done. They don't want to put any more money into the club. They are done. They just want to get rid of it.
Well, interesting point. They don't want to put any more money. That would suggest that they actually put a cent in the first place, which most believe that they haven't, because they've been living off Manchester United's funds.
Yeah. That is true. But then we will get some people that have said, oh, yeah, but you spent $1 billion. You've spent all this. You spent all that. It's like, yeah, okay, we've spent money, but it is generated from the club. That's where that money's come from. It's not gone. The Glazers haven't gone into their pockets and pulled it out and gone, here you go, use this. And that $1 billion we have spent, we might as well have chucked it on a bonfire. We've done that well with it.
Very true. A lot of the assets that have been bought over that 10-year period have actually left the club. Rich is saying they've never have put money in, have they? That's correct, Rich, because if you remember back when they actually originally took over club, they secured a lien in Woodward's former employer that, once they secured the deeds, got then amortized into the actual Red Knights trading, or whatever they're called, the limited company. And essentially the club paid to buy itself, which, when you think about it logically, is a complete misnomer. And if it was happening today, the FA and the Premier League would have slapped it down and said no, because that's where a lot of the new ownership rules came from. They're Glazer generated rules, which is an absolute phenomenon. Unfortunately, United are the club that are holding the bag for this. But before we move on to the quick topic, which is going to be Gareth Southgate, it's a bonus topic that Bat Time has no idea we were going to talk about, but we'll bring it up briefly anyway at the end. The Ryan Group, the people that are being charged with selling Manchester United, they're targeting a complete sale in Q1 of 2023, so somewhere before the end of March. How realistic do you think this is, Bat Time? And do you think, in reality, there's probably something that's a lot further down the tracks than is commonly known amongst Joe Blogg's media person? Have we lost Bat Time?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we have you now.
Okay. Sorry, I muted myself to have some raisins. Right. So I think I don't want to sort of speculate on stuff, but it would make sense to me that anyone who wants to buy the club wants to get it at the best price for them. It might be a case of waiting the Glazers out at the moment, and the Rain Group are desperately trying to push a sale as quickly as possible, as the Glazers are just bleeding money from the weakness of the pound. I would think that the 200 million that Cole mentioned earlier would basically be used to try and guarantee us Champions League football, which a potential buyer might be able to knock off 500 to $1 billion off the price if we're out of Champions League for 2 years in a row. I wouldn't expect the deal to be done quickly. I think most of the serious bidders won't have appeared yet, and the 8 billion is them trying to trying to flush people out. Reminds me of a bar that I used to go to in Santiago, where there was like a $10 cover charge to get in, and it was very annoying to pay, but it did mean that there was no riffraff in there. And I think that that's what the £8 billion price tag is about. It's getting rid of, like, was it Michael Knighton, the kick-up champion? And people like that. It's like, look, we only want serious people in here. 8 billion is the price. So that'd be my thoughts on it.
Now, the more conspiracy-minded Manchester United fans would be speculating that it's in order to get their preferred bidder in at the top of the pile, because there are rumours that there's one bidder amongst the forest of bidders that would allow a Glazer backdoor, and that they'd still have a sphere of influence. Now, obviously, that would be something that United fans would be completely regaling against. But Colm, do you share Batham's sentiments that this could be a long, arduous, drawn-out process?
Judging by the information we're receiving, obviously everybody has the information. People have sources, So I mean, we get quite a lot of information. Not going to say anybody's names whatsoever. People have their own different sources. From what we're being told, it could end up being a little bit longer than what we're expecting. Obviously, everybody's saying 1st January, February time it's going to be done. From what I'm seeing, from what I'm being told, I don't expect that at all. I really don't expect that at all, because it seems like the Glazers are dragging their feet and trying to hike up the price and get as much money as they possibly can do.
Absolutely. I suppose this is one that's not going to be going away anytime soon. We will be monitoring the situation with regards to the Glazers. But in this kind of World Cup gap before the final takes place on Sunday, I do want to wish Lisandro Martinez and Rafael Varane the very best of luck in the final. Obviously, one Manchester United player is going to have a World Cup winner's medal at the end of this. And given that Varane has already picked up one, part of me would love to see a starting Martinez pick up his first World Cup medal. And hopefully the Argentinian manager will see sense. And the idea of this ridiculous Otamendi starting situation will cease and desist rapidly. But Colm, far be it from me now, the Irishman in the group, to talk about the World Cup. But there is a manager, Mr. Waistcoat himself, Gareth Southgate, that has been overseeing the situation in England for quite some time now. And he hasn't really delivered the big trophy that you would really crave. And some would say that his tactics and its inability to use the more talented players that are available to England is, in fact, the problem. Now, there's a lot of defenders of Southgate in terms of the game that he did lose that put you out of the World Cup, that he actually got pretty much everything spot on that day. But overall, do you see Gareth Southgate's time as an England manager providing advancement in England, or has he basically kept you treading water?
Well, firstly, anybody, I mean, I'm gonna get a bit controversial here. Anybody that turns around and says Southgate did everything right again in that France game are talking out of their backside. Why are you bringing on certain players with 4-5 minutes to go? They're not going to do anything in those 4 or 5 minutes. When obviously we've come out at halftime, we've got the penalty. Harry Kane scored the penalty, fantastic, and then he blazed the other one over the bar. Fair enough. Everybody doesn't score penalties all the time. Fair enough. Should he have possibly said, Harry, you've scored one, just have the ball, but give it to somebody else to take the second penalty. You're going against your goalkeeper that you play for at a club. So there's going to be that psychological mentality there as well that you need to worry about. Obviously, that never happened. And then he's brought on Rashford and I believe brought on Grealish and people like that too late in the game. The game was pretty much done by that point. It was far too late. On Southgate, he's done very, very well for England, A Euro final, I believe we got to semi-final at World Cup. It was going to be very difficult to beat France. We all knew it was going to be very difficult to beat France. but he plays a very, very slow, boring style of football. I mean, all international football is boring. Don't get me wrong. It really is. For me, I know people will want him to stay because of how well he's done. Yeah, okay, he's done fantastically well. But for me, I think it's time that he steps aside and lets somebody else come in.
Now, interestingly, Colin, the rise in the more defensive nature of international football does appear to be prevalent. This has been obviously predicated by the fact that Croatia and Morocco both did a defense first type structure, and it yielded good results for them. They made a semi-final. So you could find it hard to argue that a defensive first mindset isn't exactly the way to go. Is it exciting for our fan base? Absolutely not. Ireland lived through years of Trapattoni, and we knew exactly what we were getting. And while we were winning, we were prepared to eat that and say, grand, it's a results-driven game. The boring football is working. But in terms of where we are now with Southgate, he's probably reached the pinnacle of where he can take it. So it doesn't need a fresh look. But if so, who and without going outside of England, is there anybody that is actually not going to be in a job that would be a favourable one? Some of the names that have been mentioned have been Brendan Rodgers and Stephen Gerrard. That time, do those names fill you with confidence as England gaffer?
Well, I mean, I have very little interest in the national team, and even less in international football, to be honest. I think Southgate has been an outrageous success for England. When if you compare that squad to sort of Sven's squad, like Terry Venables or all them men, he's done outrageously well. I'm slightly surprised, Colm, that you think that England's best penalty taker shouldn't take penalties because it's his teammate.
No. Right. What I mean by that is, I'm not saying he shouldn't take penalties. I'm saying after the first one, I watched the game. You know, we had it on. It was my birthday the weekend. We had the game on, and then we had my birthday party. So the game was a big part of it. So the first penalty he took, he put it down, and then he had to readjust it. You could see how nervous he was in taking that first penalty. Now he's managed to dispatch that first penalty. Fantastic. We've got another penalty. Obviously, the mind games are kicking in. He's scored one. He's going against somebody that knows how he plays. I'm not saying he shouldn't take it because he is the best penalty taker we have. What I'm saying is maybe for the second penalty, you look around the pitch and go, you know what, let's give it to somebody there where it might not be as nervous, the whole weight of the country is on him.
Hang on. So you're telling me, like, I'm going to be generous and say at half-time, Southgate says to Kane, if we get another penalty, it's time for Saka, who's probably England's next best penalty taker, to have it. Is that what you think an elite international manager should be doing?
There was Jordan Henderson. He's got experience. He's a decent penalty taker as well. You know, somebody that's got to be able to have a calm. I'm not saying it's what you should be doing. What I'm saying was, once you looked at how nervous he was at taking that first penalty, surely it should be playing in your mind, right? Okay, this has really got to him. You know, the occasion really got to him in that first penalty because he was absolutely terrified from that first penalty. You could see it all over his face. How many times have you watched a game with Harry Kane where he's put a ball down for a penalty, picked the ball back up, and then replaced it?
I don't have direct access to my own memories at the moment, so I've absolutely no idea. But I find it, to be honest, farcical that you think a manager would look at like a player who has knocked away so many penalties and been there like at so many occasions for England and say, do you know what? I think you look too nervous. I'm going to publicly tell the squad and the world you're not taking the next penalty.
No, because it's not farcical, is it? You know,
that sounds like a farce to me.
It isn't farcical at all. What it is it's doing what's best for the country. and what's best for the team. That's
Who
what
else
it
has
is.
done that? Can you name an occasion in international football where that has ever happened?
Spain did it.
With whom?
Fernando Torres. They took Fernando Torres off the penalties because he wasn't confident enough to take it, so he got took off the penalties.
After scoring
Actually-
a penalty in a game.
He scored a penalty the week before.
Right, but in that game, did he score
And then
a penalty?
he ended up playing against, I'm trying to remember who it was, but it was somebody, without actually properly looking into it, I can't remember who it was, but he did a very similar thing. He looked so nervous taking the penalty, he got took off of him because he skied it.
Yeah, that's after the event, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but he didn't take a penalty afterwards, though. After one penalty.
Yeah, but that's after the match is finished. So he's gone and discussed it with like the support staff, the coaches, and things, and they've come to an agreement that like Torres should be taken off penalties. What you're suggesting is that a manager changes the penalty taking order during a match because
there's nothing
you
wrong
think.
with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
I think that's
I have watched loads of football. I've watched lower league football as well, where okay, it's not international football, but I've watched lower league football where a penalty scorer. So, for instance, my team, Doncaster Rovers, where I live, somebody has scored a penalty, and I'll give you his name. Paul Heffernan scored a penalty, and we got another penalty, and he got took off of it because he was nervous, and the guy that stepped up scored the second penalty. So it does work.
So we're basing like the Kane shouldn't have taken a second penalty theory on the adventures of Doncaster Rovers.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the nerves. It can be done.
Sorry, lads. I'm going to have to interject briefly because there are a number of comments that are coming through, and I do want to say hello to Box, who is joining us here on the Full Time Sport Network. How are you doing, buddy? No. It's good to see you. He's obviously found that's where you're hiding that time.
Oh, not Box.
And obviously, Rich Sports also is in the channel. But
with Southgate, I think he's done very well for England. He might not have it at the elite level, but it is a cup competition, and you can argue that Pep doesn't have it at the elite level of cup competitions as well. I think England would be best served by sticking with him instead of getting in Brendan or Gerrard or whatever, and make no mistakes. Southgate will be in the running for the Manchester United job if the next time it comes up. So keep him at England for as long as possible before I see him putting Fred on pens after Rashford scored one or whatever's going on.
Absolutely, lads. We are winding down and the clock is running out on tonight's show, but there are two quick breaking news items. Obviously, one was slightly earlier today, and that is the Portuguese manager is no longer in a job. And there's rumours that either Jose Mourinho or Cristiano Ronaldo as a player come manager could in fact take over. I could just imagine the ego boost that Ronaldo would get if he was player gaffer, to be honest with you. But now, as ridiculous as that sounds, the one that kind of caught my eye, and on Monday, if you are hiding in the comments, I do apologize in advance for this one, but Ali McCoist has backed Harry Maguire to make a switch to Tottenham Hotspur. What do you think of that potential switch, lads, before we wrap up?
Really?
I think it would be I would like to keep Maguire at United for the not the long term, but definitely for the short term. I think the toxicity around him has become untenable, though, not to any real fault of his own. But I do find it interesting that Conte, who's one of who's played under the great Italian managers and in Catenaccio and all these systems, thinks that Maguire is good enough to go. It makes I can instantly see the link up between him and Kane and Son. I think it probably makes a lot of sense, and if Harry Maguire does go, I wish him the best, and I wish that we weren't putting in bomb threats and things to him, and that we treated a man that cared about the club with more respect.
Absolutely no. Box did say that he's never seen Harry Maguire miss a penalty, unlike Monsignor Kane. But in a position where Harry Maguire could probably be thrust into a back three situation, he'd likely thrive under Conte, wouldn't he, Colin?
Yeah, I mean, he probably would thrive under Conte. It'd just be our luck. He'd be, PFA Player of the Year or something if he moved clubs. Knowing our luck, I really hope he doesn't go to Spurs, and that we will get to see the magnificent partnership that will be Mings and Maguire at Villa. I'm really praying for that.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Now, Colin, before we wrap up, what's coming up on the channel for the rest of the week?
So the things that are coming up for the channel for the rest of the week is obviously we have the little thing. There's this tournament going off, somewhere. I can't remember what it is, but apparently there's 2 games being shown during the weekend. So Moss will be on this channel covering the 2 games, both on Saturday and Sunday, and then going into the new week, scheduling will be starting to get back to normal a little bit. I know it's Christmas as well next week, so we will be having a break, and then we'll be back to normal scheduling.
Very good, very good. Bad time, let the wonderful viewers know where they can find you if they want to discuss the finer points of the press wrestling defense or Harry Maguire.
As much as I love everyone in the comments and value their opinions, I have literally zero motivation to converse or speak with them on any medium. So, you might find me in a chat or as a guest, but please do not come looking for me because you're not wanted.
Actually, just one quick one, actually, as the silver one kind of goes in at the bottom of the 9th. What about the Bournemouth takeover? That's young Jordan, isn't the actor, is after taking a slice of that.
Good luck to him. I haven't really done a lot of research into the Bournemouth takeover. I've seen that he's obviously it's all going ahead and whatnot. That's all I can say. Good luck to him, because if he hasn't done any research, it's going to be a very, very hard lesson for him.
Absolutely. So we'll obviously keep an eye on that one, and the Silver Worm will be back telling us all about the gospel according to Arteta, I'm sure, in just over a week's time. On the 27th, or the 26th is when Arsenal return, I think, on Boxing Day, isn't it? So, but I think, lads, from us, we would love to see any comments that you have on the matters that we discussed today, i.e., the comments of Mr. Avram Glazer. What do you think that the position of Ten Hag is going to be if there is a new set of owners, and of course, sack or retain Gareth Southgate. But from us, thanks very much for joining us. We will see you again next week.